number in my cell phone, so that way when it calls, it rolls over the CeeLo.
Hey, Tony.
I'll give you ass. Greg back there. Give you an answer. May not be the one you want to hear. Sorry.
What was it? A good picture, too. Make it look better than I did. That's all I do.
He was happy.
No, I'm through with that.
Have any anything of that sort to go to lunch with these guys yet? Or
You guys ready?
Will we be back in time to go to the graduation, to the promotion ceremony? Yes, no, 3 o'clock.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Once we get hijacked down there by
Huh?
some wild
Okay. You guys ready? Good evening. We will call the Burlington City Council June 3rd, 2014 meeting to order. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you here tonight. Also like to remind you to silence all electronic devices. This time we'll call on Mayor Pro Tem Huffman for tonight's invocation.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come together this evening to participate in this exercise of democracy. We ask for your guidance and wisdom as we go about conducting the city's business. We pray that you enable us to conduct ourselves in a civil manner and remain open-minded to the concerns and opinions of one another. May the actions that we take this evening as an elected body be in the best interests of all the citizens of our town. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Next on the agenda is a presentation from Mr. Ryan Kerr from the Burlington Royals. Welcome, Mr. Kerr.
Thank you. Good evening. Appreciate you guys letting me be here. It's an honor to be here as the general manager of the Burlington Royals and representative. I left each of you guys with a hat and then a schedule as well. All that I ask of you is to check out those 35 blue dates and make sure that it doesn't rain this summer on those 35. So we continue to have a great working relationship with the city of Burlington. In 2 weeks, we'll open our gates for the 29th consecutive season. Truly remarkable feat that Burlington has hosted a team, one of 160 across the United States for 29 consecutive seasons. I think that's a true testament to the city of Burlington and the constant support that you guys are giving us throughout the season. So I have brought a plaque from last year's team, which wasn't very good, but we're hoping to have a little bit better one this year.
I'll pass that on to Mr. Owen. We're expecting a much better season.
A much better team this year, one with a little bit less rain, and we've definitely have gone on record as hoping that this year we can lead the Appalachian League in attendance for the first time in over a decade. We've raised attendance by just over 40% each of the last 2 seasons. Have had some great support here in the community. I think I'd be remiss not to thank you once again for the brand new scoreboard that was just finalized here at about 2 p.m. this afternoon. It turned out great. It looks amazing. Going to engage fans in a way that we've never been able to before. Hopefully have a pretty strong economic impact and bring some big tournaments or maybe concerts here to the city of Burlington. So thank you again for all your support, and we'll see you in about 2 weeks.
Good,
Thanks.
thank you.
Mayor, if
Sure.
I could, with these young men, they keep referencing rain like we can control the rain, but it's another story. But last year, their biggest date is July 3rd each year, which is the 4th, fireworks. Last year, if you remember, July 4th, we had about 3 to 4 inches of rain. Well, what these two young men did, and the other gentleman has left us now, it was too late to call the game off. So what their role was, and this is what these guys do, this is entertainment, people. They actually had a almost full house, and their role was to entertain the crowd for 2 hours about a baseball game. And they did that.
Yep, people were walking out of the stadium saying it was the best 4th of July they've ever had, thanking us. We didn't even play a baseball game. We shot off those fireworks at about 8:30.
Light, but it was still got them shot off. That's
Yep.
right. Yeah.
So.
But what they do is they're truly, this is entertainment. We talk about the teams winning or losing. This is rookie league baseball. This is development baseball. It's not about winning. It's developing the players.
Obviously, it's not about winning.
That's from a former high school coach.
That's me.
That's tough. But they do a nice job over there, and the new scoreboard is pretty neat.
Yeah, it's great.
Good.
See that, yeah.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you. We wish you well this year. Next item on the agenda is the Code of Ethics. This time we recognize Ms. Ward.
Council, it's my responsibility to remind you of your duty to avoid conflicts of interest that emerge before us. At this time, I ask if there are any potential conflicts concerning tonight's agenda items.
None. Thank you. Approval of the minutes, May 20th, 2014, City Council meeting. Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We have an add-on, request for a closed session.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to ask that we put that add-on there for the purpose of the annual performance evaluation of the city manager.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Adoption of the agenda.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Consent agenda. These items are typically non-controversial. If anyone has any questions about the following items, please let us know. Item 1A, to approve the lease and concession agreement between the City of Burlington and Burlington Baseball Club Incorporated for an additional 3-year term from May 1st, 2015 until April 30th, 2018. B, to adopt ordinances requiring the demolition of buildings for properties located at 0 Park Road and 144 Hunter Avenue. C, to release a listing of taxes and assessments totaling $240,708.19 for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2014. D, to adopt a resolution of intent to set a date of public hearing for July 15th, 2014 to consider permanently closing Hensley Street between Carriage Loop to the end. E, to make the following appointments to the advisory boards and commissions for the 2014-15 fiscal year, spelled out in your agenda. F, Budget Amendment 2014-47, CDBG Home Program Loan Repayments, that is spelled out in your agenda. G, Budget Amendment 2014-48, Police Donation, is spelled out in your agenda.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Brings us to public hearing. Item number 2, a public hearing has been scheduled to consider adoption of the proposed 2014-15 fiscal year budget for the City of Burlington and to adopt the grant project ordinance for the 2014-15 Community Development Program. This time we recognize Mr. Owen. Mr. Owen.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, as we say each year, it's a process that begins about 6 months ago and ends with tonight in terms of preparation by staff, getting public input, and obviously speaking to the council members. Economists have called this past recession the Great Recession. They've also stated that the return to the economic status of the way things were before this recession has been and will continue to be much slower than in previous recoveries. Throughout the entire period of time, the city has been able to continue to provide the services that our citizens expect. Much of the credit for being able to manage these difficult times is a direct result of the leadership and direction of the council, which all of you have provided. It's important to note that this has been done and it's been accomplished without a tax increase in the last 6 years. The mayor had asked me earlier to look at this. The Metropolitan Mayors Coalition is made up of 27 cities in North Carolina, the largest cities in the state. And he had asked me to go back and look from 2007 to the date about the various tax rates of these cities, and that would include any reval periods of time that equals out. So we went back, the 27 cities, only 7 cities have actually gone through this period of time without a property tax increase. Of those 7 cities, actually Burlington went through with a property tax decrease of 1 cent. Of those 7 cities, the 7 cities are, first Boone, a college town, second Fayetteville, electric utility town, and also military town, Goldsboro, a military town, Greenville, a strong utility town, Hickory, like us, they kept the tax rate even, Huntersville, about even, outside of Charlotte, and Jacksonville, a military town. Of the other 20 cities over this period of time, all of them have experienced some sort of tax increases as they continue to provide services they're involved in doing. The 2014-15 budget has been developed based on the assumption that, I use the word, most state revenues will be the same for this fiscal year, but changes are surely coming in the future. As our state legislators undertake statewide tax reform, several of our important state funding resources may be at risk. Obviously, the bill recently passed in the Senate would eliminate privilege license revenues entirely effective July 1, 2015. That would have a current impact of approximately $500,000 on future city budgets. Staff will continue to work with your guidance and assistance to convince state leaders that any changes in funding should not result in a loss of local revenue for cities, and I turn you to the term local revenues. As we've said before, Burlington was one of the cities, and a former manager, Mr. Baker's here, he can certainly speak to this, that years ago put in a privilege license concept based on gross receipts. Gross receipts was what attempted, as we begin to see the big boxes come in this community, where the more revenue was paid in, the bigger the privilege license was to try to equal the playing field between the smaller businesses. Many of the small businesses you see downtown areas now compared to the big boxes on the interstate. So this is a significant potential loss of revenue. Should a significant loss continues and other areas come to the point, the city will be required to look at services now being provided, the level of those services, and potential revenues that might offset reductions that we will see. Provided is an overview of the proposed 14-15 budget. Staff was again asked to submit a baseline budget as close to 13-14 levels as possible, fiscal year 13-14. This budget reflects a whole line approach that we've used for a number of the past years. Even with that approach, there are several increases which are simply unavoidable. Police had 6 officers coming off a federal grant program that had to be absorbed. We're in the midst of expansion of fire services as we prepare for the construction and the operation of Station Number 6. Nationally, the changes in the healthcare industry and the business liability insurance market have caused minimal increases for the budget as well. Management has closely reviewed capital improvements and requests and has funded what we believe is to be needed and to be included for departmental needs. And obviously, all the requests made could not be funded, but we think the primary needs have been funded. City of Burlington's budget is adopted by ordinance in accordance with North Carolina general statutes that require estimated revenues and appropriated fund balance to equal appropriations. The budget is developed on a cash basis, including only expenditures and revenues to be realized during the fiscal year. All operational funds reasonably expected to be received are included in the budget ordinance and are expended in accordance with the adopted budget ordinance. State statute also established the fiscal year to begin July 1st and end June 30th. Another concept that we constantly struggle with is as legislatures get into changes, the legislature is just getting started on a short session, and we're actually, our budget is to be approved somewhat early. So it's always a roll of the dice what happens here in the next few weeks in Raleigh. The budget is broken down into three primary funds: the general fund, which includes funding for police, fire, recreation and parks; public works, which includes engineering, planning, GIS, MPO areas, inspections, transportation and technical services; and legal, finance, human resources, health services, information technology, and general administration. The Water Resource Fund, which is the enterprise fund, includes funding for water and sewer repair and construction, water and sewer plants and facilities, and water source protection, laboratories, and composting. The third fund is the Stormwater Enterprise Fund, which reflects state mandates for all Phase 2 cities initiated for a formal stormwater plan. And that's something we're going to mention here in a few minutes. That's really where some significant changes coming forth going forward in stormwater. To the general fund, the proposed budget for the 14-15 year is $49,632,102, representing a 2.8% increase, which equals to $1,355,136 over the 13-14 budget. Major revenue sources for the general fund remain at 13-14 levels, with modest increases in property tax and sales tax. No difference in the tax rate, just some increases in terms of, we've had some growth, and of course, sales tax has been a relatively good year with sales tax. The property tax remains at 58 cents per $100 property valuation. The discount for the current year taxes paid during the month of August is recommended to be reduced from 2% to 0.5%. And that's really in conjunction with things that Alamance County has done, and also with what Guilford County, which is part of our city, has requested us to consider. Major capital expenditures include the budget as follows: replacement of side loader trash trucks, dump trucks, and sanitation, which is nearly $500,000. Replacement of 13 police cars is $516,000. $900,000 allocated for street resurfacing. I think today, Mr. Rue, we started a contract for this year in terms of street resurfacing for the summer. Money has been allocated for intersection improvements and also allocated for sidewalk improvements. Funding in the proposed budget includes an allocation to the Alamance County Chamber of Commerce of $50,000 for economic development, an allocation of $232,500 to the Burlington and Alamance Airport Authority to aid in infrastructure enhancement at the airport, an allocation of $150,000 to the Downtown Development Corporation to assist in revitalization of downtown, and an allocation of $26,700 to Alamance County Transportation Authority to support a form of public transportation. Included in this budget is funding for the increases recommended in the position classification study, which I believe equals to 1.77%. Also included in the budget is an increase in employee costs for dependent health care coverage. As we saw some increases in that is responded back to what the employees pay also for dependent coverage. One thing which I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, which is really important, the debt service in the general fund is really low. It's only 6.6% of the fund. And that's important as you start looking at larger capital projects going forward. We really are in a pretty good position to enter into some additional debt in reference to the general fund side. Any comments on that part? Water Resources Fund, first an enterprise fund. Acts as a business. It's designed, and it should be designed, in terms of making a profit, because you've got to depreciate so much of what's involved in our water and sewer system. Proposed budget for Water Resources Fund is $27,566,148. This is an increase of approximately $1.2 million, or 4.6% increase compared to the 13-14 budget. Capital funding needs are ever present as the system continues to age, as seen recently with the force main break, the portion of force main break we had back in January over the East Plant. As a result of capital needs, a 4% rate increase for both water and sewer will be necessary to balance the budget, and look forward to budgeting needed capital improvements going forward. The increased cost to the average residential customer will be about 5 cents per day. Water resource staff continues to do an outstanding job, and they really do, in terms of managing operational expenses. Capital funding levels for projects, line repairs, and maintenance, as well as replacement of old equipment, have been included in the budget, and this is all pay-as-you-go, no financing in this particular budget in terms of that equipment and projects. One of the major projects budgeted for the 14-15 budget is replacement of 1/3 of the Hall River Interceptor line, which is approximately will be about $2.5 million. The Hall River Interceptor line is a major line that brings in wastewater from the east part of the city as far north as Elon and brings it to the east plant along the Hall River, which is a very critical area in terms of being near state waters. It should be noted that, and I'm not going to get into a great deal of comparisons here, but that our water and sewer rates continue to be significantly lower than most communities in our region and in the state. Included in this part of the budget is also increases recommended by in the position reclassification study, and also an increase in employee costs but dependent on health care coverage. Stormwater. City staff recommends a stormwater fund budget of $811,663. Rates, as we propose now, continues to be $3 per month per water and sewer customer. Now, we will review those rate structure again probably at the end of the year as we normally do in January 1. As Mr. Butler has said on a couple occasions, this is the only part of the budget that has operated in terms of a deficit. We've had really reserves to cover that, but the demands in terms of our stormwater programs will continue to grow. It's just part of what's happened at the state level. It doesn't really come as a result of new construction. Most of that really was actually looked at when that construction was done, but this is more older construction where those stormwater rules were indeed not in place. I'm not sure up here, but the major stormwater issues continue to develop and implement an enforced program to reduce the discharge of pollutants, continue to map the city's storm drainage system, and continue the need of public education outreach program using Stormwater Smart Group and so forth and so forth. A great example is one of the areas that produce a lot of our stormwater is where we set in is downtown. Downtown, it's tons of pavement, it's buildings. You had a lot of older industrial plants that had only rooftops but also parking lots. It's impervious surface. And that's an area certainly that Michael Lane and Bob Patterson has talked about in references to doing some type of initiative soon to begin to look at the control of that particular element of our operations. And the final part is the downtown tax district. The Burlington Downtown Corporation will recommend that the current tax rate of 16 cents per 100 assessed valuation be maintained. Obviously, the city, as we've said earlier, it's been recommended to put forth another $150,000. Basically, $75,000 that goes towards general operations, another $75,000 towards some capital projects in terms of some upkeep or some renovations going on in the downtown area. Certainly with the staff, and I want to say to all of our staff, all of our department heads, and certainly Peggy and Frank was really involved in this. We want to thank them for their efforts. We want to thank the council again for the leadership and guidance as we strive to provide quality services to our citizens in order to continue to make Burlington a great place to live and work. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to try to address them now.
Questions for Mr. Owen?
On the downtown special tax district, what does 1 cent, this may be for Peggy, what does 1 cent give you on the properties that are assessed in that district? You have an idea?
It's $130,000 roughly for the whole. 116.
They're taking their shoes and socks off if they're trying to count.
About 8,000.
About 8,000.
So 1 cent equals.
Okay. And we reduced that district back considerably
2006.
in 2006, did we not?
Was it 20 cents?
So many of the improvements that actually we made to the roadscape and streetscaping and stuff actually was even beyond what is currently the district itself, is it not?
And I was just using general fund money.
I understand.
Harold, after the November of 13 election, we had some conversations about code enforcement officers. You know, right before the election, there was some talk about all sides are not being treated equally among different areas of our community, and one of the things that we discussed was within this next budget that we would actually put in 2 code enforcement officers to be able to go around and on their own enforce codes without being called and reporting things. So is that taken care of in this budget?
We moved some people from other departments into code enforcement to give us additional staff people. They're in the midst of being trained now.
Okay.
And we're really involved in the sign ordinance implementation we did back early in the spring.
A couple other issues that we talked about during the election, too, I think, among the 2 of us, or the 3 of us that ran, was the downtown revitalization we talked about. We talked about public transportation. We talked about the code enforcement in East Burlington and downtown events as well. So I'm assuming they are addressed within, and maybe even the zoning enforcement within this budget as well.
Of course, the money is still there as the city has allocated to the downtown corporation, some for operations. I think it became obvious that Ann's group was more of economic development, so Parks and Rec is beginning to take a bigger role involved in the actual activities. It's really unfair to ask her with a limited staff to do what we're asked to do down there. When you've got to prepare for an event, you've got to set up, you've got to you've got to operate the event, you've got to clean up after the event. I think so far this spring, I believe Friday night before last, maybe last Friday night, they had the first 4th Friday and a large crowd. Revitalization it continues. Actually, Matt Robinson was in the office late this afternoon. They're doing some additional work and blocking part of a street on Sunday on their project. And there's other options. There's some things that I think can go on downtown. So it'll be an interesting year to see where all that goes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from council before the public hearing?
I just want to make a couple of comments about the process of getting into this budget. Obviously, we know there's going to be some significant reduction in revenues from the state as we look ahead. I mean, that's a given, and the budget and the planning is based on economic growth and obviously building our tax base through a more robust economy. Mac, we need all the help you can give us there in order to do that. But probably most importantly, we're talking about a slight increase in water and sewer side. We've got some significant infrastructure needs, and Harold, we've talked about it, but our plan's pretty aggressive to get ahead of the curve on this, which we need to do. And that was never more proven than this winter with some of the instances that we had. So I think the staff's done a remarkable job to try to put this thing together to the level that it is. We've had some significant increases in the needs of our police department with regards to training and some other things that have been addressed. And it's just a lot of work went into this that really behind the scenes you guys are to be commended on, and I'd like to thank the council for their input and how they were guided in that process as well.
Thank you. Any other comments before we start the public hearing?
I have one, Mayor. I want to congratulate staff for putting this together. You did a wonderful job, and I appreciate what you've done. I think looking at 2015, 2016, this council has a tremendous amount of work to do to tighten the belt up for the city to keep hopefully we can keep the tax rate down. We can't promise, but we'd like to be able to do that. Our citizens will see some changes. I'm sure they will down the road. Hopefully not significant changes, but there will be some coming. So I just want to tell the council guys we need to sharpen our pencils now to get ready for 2015-16 budget. Just like I say, with the changes happening in Raleigh, we're in for some tough times right now. So I just want the council to be ready to tackle that major task that we have at hand to keep the citizens of Burlington accustomed to the services they've been accustomed to. But it's just going to take some belt tightening to do it. And again, I congratulate staff, Mr. Owens, for putting this budget together and without a tax increase.
This is a public hearing. Anyone on this side that would like to speak? If you would state your name and address. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Ann Morris, Executive Director of the Burlington Downtown Corporation. My address is 496 Parkview Drive. I just wanted to point out a couple of brief facts in regards to the success we've had downtown as you're considering our continued support, which we very much are grateful for, and we think that's been a large part of why we've been successful. What we realized this year when our revenues came in is that the value of our tax district over last year has grown by almost $12 million, which is pretty significant for a 16-block area. So that takes the total value of the district to somewhere around $96 million. In looking at the modest tax growth in property value that was indicated in Manager Owens' report, it was reported at $400,000. Well, if you look at the portion that could be attributed to the $12 million of growth that we've seen in our downtown, that equals $70,000 or 18.2%. So a lot of that growth has disproportionately occurred downtown, which we think is a great testament to the success of the grant programs we've put together, as well as, the holistic approach. If you look back to sort of the beginning of our rebooting of our program, when I joined in 2009, we see a cumulative growth of about $18 million. And what that translates into is $104,400 in city taxes. So while we're asking for a continued stable support in the amount of $150,000, you now have an additional $104,400 coming back to you. So that's a pretty good investment in my book or anyone's book, and I just thank you for that. And these are some of the reasons why we would like to hold that tax rate stable, is because we're seeing success with new development, and we don't want to put an excessive burden on the small business owners and some of these entrepreneurs who have taken great expense from their smaller pockets to do some significant projects downtown. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Anyone else on this side that would like to speak? Anyone on this side that would like to speak?
A question, I understand a lot of belt tightening. Is any of that going to be considered on the golf course, which for the last 5 years you've dumped $3 million into and have lost about $150,000 a year on, I think even going back further than the last 5 years. I don't have those numbers, but I understand it's a perennial loser. And also, I didn't hear anything about public transportation. I understand there's going to be a vote in a couple weeks, and I want to know if there's any money allocated for a yes vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on this side that would like to speak?
We will close the public hearing.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose. Comments?
No comments. I move that we adopt the 2014-2015 budget.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Okay. It appears to me that there's a grant project ordinance that needs to be voted on as well.
Yes, it is, Mayor.
Okay?
Community development.
Yes.
That's all. Make a motion for that community development grant for 2014-2015.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Good, thank you. Public comment period. We have Kathy Colville, sorry. Welcome. If you'd state your name and address. Topic is public transportation.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Colville. My address is 608 South 5th Street in Mebane. I work here in Burlington. But as I mentioned, I do live in Mebane. I'm speaking here in Burlington tonight, though, because I think we've realized with public transit that the decisions that you make in one city can affect my family living in a completely different place. Before I speak, I do want to thank you for the work that you do and how tough this decision is for many of you. Those of us in the general public get to conceal our opinions if we want to, and then loudly complain about the decisions that you make, or loudly tweet about the decisions that you make. You all don't get to hide your opinion, and you really do have to take a stand, and I appreciate that. On public transit, I think you've been criticized from both sides on this, and I'm not here for that at all. I'm really here simply to support, to express my support for public transit, and I apologize that it's taken me so long to come forward on this. In considering the issue, which has been something I thought about for a long time, I keep coming back to two reasons why I support public transit. One is a really big picture reason, and the other is kind of small scale and close to my heart. As far as the big picture, I think we have a structural dilemma in our community, which is that we have housing affordability over here on this side of the community and a growing economy and jobs on another side in our community. And that structural dilemma is for reasons that are bigger than any one person can influence, right? It goes back to big stuff like where the interstate is, Great Recession type of stuff. It goes back to NAFTA and what that meant for manufacturing jobs in our community, right? And all of that is really big, and it's hard for one person to really take in or one council to take in. But I think it comes down really to this small equation, which is tough, right? Affordable housing here and jobs here. I learned about a man who was living at our Allied Churches shelter who was walking 6 miles to work from here to here because the job meant that much to him. And he did it every day, and he did it for third shift, so he walked in the dark. And people will go to great lengths for these good jobs, and we know why. Because they transform our lives, they transform our families, they transform our communities. That big structural dilemma is tough, and it's taken a long time for that to sort of become this trend that is, of course, difficult. But I think that public transit really is a viable strategy to try and chip away at that dilemma. I mentioned also that I have sort of a close to my heart reason that I support public transit. And it's basically because I think that sometimes hard work just isn't enough for some people. I live in Mebane, and I have a church friend here in Burlington, and she tries to keep her car just for the work week. It's not reliable anymore, it's old. And so I come from Mebane to Burlington, and I pick her up, and we go through Mebane, and we drive all the way to Cedar Grove, where we both go to church, northern Orange County, other side of Mebane. And I'm not asking you to develop a fixed transit system all the way to Cedar Grove, North Carolina, I promise you that. I'll take care of Sunday morning. But she needs help Monday through Friday. She has a lot of opportunities that she struggles to realize because the car might not always work, and she might not always be able to figure out how to get the job, and she works really hard. We have a long time to talk on these rides, as you can imagine. And I think of what a blessing it would be for her to have that peace of mind that she would be able to get to a job, to reach out for some better opportunities for herself. And if I take it real extreme, sometimes I think if she were able to get on that bus to get to that job, she'd actually earn enough money to not have to ride the bus anymore. Who knows, right? There's a lot that's been said about public transit, and a lot of it is really hyperbole, right? It's either a horrible, terrible black hole money pit, or it's going to solve all of the problems that we've ever had in this community, and neither of those things are true, I don't think. But I do think it could help chip away at some of the structural issues that individuals have trouble bridging themselves. And again, I think it could be a blessing to many people in our community who are working very hard to try and make it work. So I'm grateful for this time to speak, and thank you so much for your service on the council.
Thank you, ma'am. That brings us to city council comments.
Mayor, I'd like to make a couple of comments. One budget related in general. Obviously, as Harold stated, it's our role to provide services for the taxpayers of the city of Burlington, and there's many aspects of that. I mean, there's police and fire, and there's parks and recreation, and there's just a myriad of the things that we see every day, but there's also a myriad of things you can't see every day, and one of those is quality of life. And it's hard to put a tax rate on quality of life and what citizens in a community need and what we can provide for them as a city with our dollars. I've often heard it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village to survive, it takes a village to get one woman to church. It takes a community in order to do that. I think our Parks and Recreation has been a great conduit for our quality of life in the city of Burlington. Whether it's Springwood, whether it's Joe Davison, whether it's City Park, or whether it's Indian Valley. It has no dollar amount that can be put on that. And I think it's extremely important that we understand that when we start talking about the wins and losses and the pluses and minuses on the expense and income side of things. It's difficult to make those decisions oftentimes. But at what point in time they become stressful, you then address them head on. When it comes to public transportation, I think the credible need of public transportation has been readily established. I've said that often, I'll continue to say that. If this council chooses to move forward with public transportation, there are funding sources available to support that. Whether it is a countywide effort, whether it is a multiple municipal effort, or whether it's a unilateral effort on behalf of the city of Burlington. And that too will hit head on if that's the route we decide to take, and I think we're more than capable of handling that without losing a quality of life in either direction. So that's my comments with regards to what we've done here tonight, and I appreciate everybody's efforts in it.
Any other comments from council before I get started?
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to follow up on what Mr. Butler said, that I think what this city council has done over the years, and previous city councils, is we've been trying to focus on providing basic services, basic municipal services, but a higher quality of basic service than we've gotten a lot of bang out of the buck that we've spent over the years. And I don't think that there is a city around that has a stronger recreation department, Mr. Laws down there, than the city of Burlington does. I don't think we have to take a back seat to anybody as far as our water and sewer is concerned. I recognize that we are ahead of the curve, and as far as the Jordan Lake rules are concerned and meeting the mandates of the legislature there, and we're going to be ahead of the curve when it comes to refurbishing our facilities as far as water and sewer is concerned. I have no doubt that this city is going to be, we're going to survive that challenge as it comes down the pike. I don't think we have a thing to be, we don't take a back seat to anybody, even some of the larger towns, and I just want to commend the staff over the years for what they have done for the citizens of Burlington, and appreciate what they have done in providing these basic services.
Thank you. A couple of announcements. Obviously, I'd like to say thank you to the staff for the sign pickup that we implemented the first of the year. We're over 3,300 illegal signs that's been picked up, so that's cleaned up our city. We appreciate that. Free electronic waste drop-off event Saturday, June 7th from 9 a.m. to 2. That is on Public Works parking lot on Summit Avenue. June 4th, 2014, the City Council will be attending Town Hall Day in Raleigh, which is tomorrow. Willow Walk event this Saturday, June 7th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Sunday, June 8th to 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. and that will be at Willowbrook Park. Also, congratulations to Mr. Laws, 45 years. Wow. Congratulations. Okay. The other thing, last night, Mr. Nunn discussed with this council in reference to public transportation. We had an opportunity for more Q&A session with Mr. Nunn. So what we didn't do is finish the business of discussing whether we were going to have a public hearing. We have talked about having an up or down vote, the second meeting in June, but I think it would be an opportunity that we need to host that public hearing, so I would ask for some feedback in reference to announcing that public hearing, second meeting in June. Any questions, comments from council in reference to that?
But a public hearing with respect to public transit,
Yes.
yes, I'm in favor of that.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay. So that would be, Ms. Ward, we would put that on the agenda for the advertisement of the second meeting in June for a public hearing on public transportation. Okay. The other part that Councilmember Fawcett talked about, it does concern me moving forward. This budget is behind us, but as of July 1st, 2015, obviously the governor signed this, that the privilege license tax will basically be eliminated. It's my understanding that there might be some conversation in the long session about this topic, and we need to get local representation. Obviously, they were no help to us with in the short session, so we need to get with Senator Gunn, Representative Ross, and Rydell in reference to the long session to see if they can help us at least get something on the table other than the $100 max or even nothing. So we've got two options out there. Really, we have no options out there right now at this point in time, but there's still some conversation. So when we see the guys tomorrow, we need to mention we desperately need their help in reference to that revenue stream. So anything else that needs to come forward, Council?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, the conversation you had early in the day with me in terms of services is if we start comparing, Ann mentioned revenues in one area of the city, growth, there's growth all through the city. We don't need to start playing one part of the city off with another part of the city. And as the Mayor mentioned today, what we do in local government, there's not many revenue winners or profit making. That's done in the private sector. So as we start trying to play one program off against another, everyone has a different interest and everyone serves a different purpose. So that's what makes these people's jobs so difficult in terms of attempting to best use the resources we have to provide the type of services that they believe the people of our community want to have, and what gives our community a chance to prosper as much as possible. So it's not a lot of winners in terms, if that's what the private sector does. We're not in the business, quite frankly, to make money. And that's what makes what all you all do so difficult, because we take the resources that we have, attempt to apply them in a manner that's effective and what's best for everyone in the community.
And I agree with that statement. Here's my concern in reference to this Bill 1050, is that you're speaking in reference to $500,000. That's a revenue stream that we're going to lose if something good doesn't happen in the long session. So then you've got two options, the way I see it. Now, I may be wrong, and if I'm wrong, correct me. One, you either have a property tax increase, or two, you cut services. Now, I said this before, and I'll repeat it. A couple of cities have discussed the opportunity of, we have our trash picked up once a week. They're talking about discussing maybe every 2 weeks, maybe every 3 weeks. That's cutting back services that our citizens take for granted. So it's, you got two choices. And so this council needs to be thinking in advance of the 15-16 budget, when you're taking away $500,000, what can we do to help offset the $500,000? We're good for this year, obviously, with the budget that we passed tonight, but this is serious business, and you're going to hear a lot, well, we're going to hear, as a council, we will hear a lot of discussion tomorrow in Raleigh about this particular bill.
Well, I wasn't referencing that bill. I'm referencing the whole concept of what we do.
I understand what you're saying.
That what we do is, how do we put a value on, for example, you guys are in the midst of some significant challenges. We're in the midst of getting ready to construct a new fire station and staff it. But how do we put a value on a fire we had last weekend when, would a station being closer cut down the response time, and what kind of, what could have we done earlier or better if we got there quicker? How do you put a value, for example, today when someone calls the police and says they're bringing a rifle to Broadview School, wouldn't have to have police officers there to close the school down at 3 o'clock? These are the things that there's no they're not designed to make money. This is what we do. For example, back in the winter when we had the ice storm, let me say this. All credit in the world go to Nolan Kirkman for getting ahead of the learning curve and putting that plan together that we were ready to go and collect that debris. We will get reimbursed for that. 189,000 cubic yards of debris. The first began to be 50,000 the first day, to go to 189,000. That's what, think about it, if the city hadn't done that, what would have happened to it? It's still been out there. So it's a collection of what the challenges you all face, and you're right. The situation in Raleigh with the privilege license is one, what's going to be next?
Exactly.
But it's really a challenge that all you all face.
Mayor, I appreciate your comments, and I want to tell you what I was earlier when I said the emphasis here is we're not sitting out here on the far end with some sort of off-the-wall services that we provide. It's basic services.
Right.
These are basic municipal services. No Cadillacs. We got a good, strong Chevrolet or Toyota or whatever you want to call it. And I will have to say that I certainly hope that the legislature and our delegation down there is truly speaking in good faith when they say that they are going to explore next year some way to reimburse the cities or provide another revenue source for the cities.
Right.
Because, frankly, I don't think we're doing anything that our citizens don't want us to be doing.
Right.
In fact, what we're hearing now in tough economic times is that the need for more municipal services, and for us would be when we're talking about a new bus, we're talking about a bus system, that would be an expansion of services. Comes with some dollars involved, but it's still a commitment on the part of this city council. It does bother me, to follow up on what the managers talked about, is that more and more we hear talk about, well, I don't really need those services. I don't need you hear people say, I don't have any kids in the school anymore. Public services are not a la carte. We can't pick and choose what we necessarily want, because we have a broad constituency. We have old people and we have young people. We have different needs. And the idea is that we need to try to meet those municipal services that our whole range of citizens needs. And I think we've done a good job in the past. It does bother me that the legislature is trying to cut sources of revenue that we're providing those basic services.
Right.
Those should be our decisions.
Okay.
Those challenges aren't necessarily going to go away. Even if we get over these hurdles, there's going to be more. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that means that this council must take a hard look at every single economic development project that comes before us, and to be sure that it's properly vetted, to see that if we can make it work. And that's how we stay ahead of the curve on this thing. Economics will solve this.
Entertain a motion to.
No.
Huh?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we go into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-21811A6 to discuss the annual performance evaluation of our city manager.
Have a second?
Second.
And a motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
You staying or you going?
Of course, loses about 15-20% max a year. And a high revenue. All you gotta do, all you got to do is just look right here. Police at 14 million on it. That's right. Who else, nobody else would do it.
If it was profitable, I'd start my own business in municipal transit or whatever. I don't care. I'd fight buyers.
You make a widget.
Yeah, yeah.
What you would do is you
You wouldn't put out the fire until you got a nice fat check. And the check cleared. Yeah, exactly. That's what you don't want. You don't want there to be a profit-making mentality in public services, because that's when you get corruption. And you don't want that. If you guys are losing money, that means you're not corrupt. That's a good thing. Yeah. You know what's worse, when you bring in private contractors to do things that public employees have been doing, and daring an employee, they're daring to make money. But do you think Tidewater will? No. No.
should we make it? Maybe. Odds are, probably not.
You know,
You put out something? Yeah, we hope to get things.
the old sanitation director before the current guy
Don Davis.
was encouraging people to bring out their trash. This was with the bulk waste. They were encouraging people to bring out the bulk waste. And since you can only get one bite free, he was saying, bring out one bite. Then after you get up, bring out another one. Tell us we didn't pick it up. We'll come out and get it. That's the public service mentality. Yeah, exactly. And you know what this is?
Look, that guy, they was probably kidding about that.
There's no profit in saving lives. I mean, come on. No. I know. He keeps pushing it. I'm just waiting. So far the council has been very polite, and they've held themselves back. Well, the council has. I can't say that for everyone. Even people who haven't held themselves back have learned from their mistakes and are now holding themselves back. But he keeps doing it. It's like it's a game with him. He's trying to see how far he can go. What can he say? How badly can he insult you guys? What's he going to do next? Call you guys and say that you guys are the next worst thing to Hitler. Because, what's the point in that? What's the profit in that? Well, we actually didn't finish the press, we didn't. There came a point, though, when it was sometimes his remarks sort of fit what he was needing to do. And that's sort of, he's an extremely intelligent guy. He used to work for us, And he was a good reporter. If you talk to him one-on-one, he's a very reasonable person. Show off or something. Yeah, to target. Good job. I know. Nothing helps him one bit. He's not gonna, he's gonna have to quit his job or something. Is this still the second table? I don't think it's viable. It's not really viable. Basically grew out of a very poorly demanding agency in nonprofit. And ultimately it was so badly done that they have to scrap the whole thing and start it again as a government agency instead of a nonprofit. This is all before my time, but they're good. mind anything being too good, going to be added. Let's cut out the boring bits. Well, that's what happened. That's what happened to Carver. Actually, at first started in there. I know there was just a little bit of smoke in there from the moving buildings. And do you know why those firewalls are there to begin with? Because somebody like the first light, people started. Nobody did it. You just don't know. You know, you look like the one over. Yeah. Well, this is what you know with me. I also remember my neighbors or, you know, doing something that's why. No. people might have a perception that it's more common than it really is. Because in these cases, really didn't happen that often. But they're more deadly. They're more deadly than they were when, yes, our mental health system is in disarray. Just about every student educator has been somebody that's been the guy that shot yeah. The guy in Connecticut. Everyone of them. One of our girls doing that. then you try to, set up a scenario over the radio and I'm actually here to keep the media didn't remain accepted me. It was good. It was good. In fact, there might be some help. Yeah, I tried to get away with more than I was allowed to, and remain accepted me. Let me get away with the ground. Hey, back here. Just about. No, I actually, I made the play different. Well, the damage is done. No, but that's the thing. I walked it. One won't run me, but I knew that if I ran off with those cookies, I would. So I let her know what I was doing. They listen very, yeah, they nod, they smile. They don't think much. I know, they just want to have to get in there and guys were like straight.
Nobody ever asked me if I
Not as much detail as you put in that one.
Would you like that?
Maybe it's because I don't have it.
Per capita based on the number of units, does that play into it?
I think what I'd like to see is just simply the most, like calls, that sort of stuff.
Gross data?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll see if we can work out.
Yeah, I think that would be simple and sweet.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
Second.
Got a motion?
Now, George.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Did you get that, Ms. Ford?
What are these letters about?
We'll be adjourned.
Wait a minute, waiting on Ms. Ward.
Okay.
Go what? Adjourn? Or you get the first and second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion to adjourn.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
guys did